It is Monday, November 19th, 2018. It is 8 p.m. Pacific Standard Time, and so you know what time it is. It's time for a little bit of coin metal. And it was a very confusing get your ass kicked at Jiu-Jitsu Monday. We were doing a bit of sweeps, and these weren't standing sweeps per se, but they were more from more open guard sweeps. So like butterfly guard and that kind of business. Anyway, I had a lot of trouble with it. It was one of those days where I didn't have an opportunity to warm up before class. So, truth be known, my head wasn't like 100% already engaged into my body, you know. And I normally like to run or do some sort of cardiovascular activity before I even warm up in class. And I found that has an effect of making my adrenaline spike just a teeny tiny bit, you know, enough to follow along with my heart rate there. And having gotten over like the initial warm up of the upper end of my threshold, you know, I usually get a better performance out of myself in class. But like I said, I wasn't able to get back and do that today. Had to go out and do some family stuff today. Have some fun with the old man out there doing a little fishing. And it was a productive day. You know, I figured I had to do something because the alternative was sitting watching Bitcoin go down below $5,000, which, hey man, we didn't sign on to any kind of guarantee here, and you know, it's one of those things that makes me leery of anything that wants to build on top of a coin. You know, just make your fucking service to where you can use cryptocurrencies. Period. If you have to intrinsically integrate your shit into somebody else's shit, it's too fucking deep. And I can tell you right now that in the longer term, what's going to end up happening is you're going to confine yourself from a greater percentage of the market. The market does not want to use just one fucking coin. If they did, they'd all use US dollars. They wouldn't even use Bitcoin, they'd use US dollars. But the world doesn't have that option. And so, you know, we have cryptocurrencies. And not everybody can be, you know, mining Bitcoin or able to buy Bitcoin. But they can if they're able to kind of work up the tree, you know, where you start off mining some sort of altcoin that you can believe in and actually use for commerce. And then you find an exchange where somebody's willing to give you that something, you know, whether it be US dollars or something else for your coin. And see, I think the trend, as I've seen it, has been to try and push people to use their cryptocurrencies off-chain, which is completely fucking ridiculous, because why even use a cryptocurrency if you're not going to have an immutable record of your transaction on the blockchain? What's the fucking point? You know? If you need a third-party intermediary, you might as well be using your fucking Visa card. It's the same thing. Same exact thing. You put the fucking money in the bank account, and then you can use it on the Visa-backed credit card. That's the same thing that you're being offered with Lightning and other off-chain solutions, quote-unquote solutions, is a third-party payment provider who's willing to accept your coin and then put it on your credit card. Or you put it on your node. But here's the thing, if it's on your node, you still have to use a third-party intermediary in the event that the fees get too high on-chain. And it's like one of the downplayed things when people are talking about Lightning is that if you aren't initiating the payment channel on the blockchain, on the Bitcoin blockchain, if you're not the entity that does that, then somebody else is doing it. And if somebody else is doing it, somebody else has a choice whether or not they want to allow your transactions to go through their hub. And I know everybody's got this fantasy that, oh, I can hide who I am, and no. You got to read the patents that these people are putting on their software, you know? And the big one that catches me, and it's just because it's the one I read the most recently, was MasterCard. If you get the opportunity and you got some time or whatever, go on over to my YouTube channel. I got one up there called And Then You Win, MasterCard Capitulates. Okay? If you listen to that, I did a live read of MasterCard's patent application for their service. And this service would include fractional reserves of fiat currency and fractional reserves of cryptocurrency and other little bits of data in the transaction data itself. But this is all in their patent. And so, I'm reading that and I'm looking at it and I'm thinking to myself, okay, so if I've got, say, a stable coin, my own maybe, a stable coin like USDC on one side, and then on the other side, on the fiat side that is, because it's backed 1-to-1 by US dollars, supposedly. But on the other side, instead of Bitcoin, what I have is liquid Bitcoin, given to me by Adam Back in exchange for real Bitcoin, right? And so I'm playing the part of MasterCard here. And so every transaction that you do, it's not exclusively in fiat and it's not exclusively in liquid, but it's done on liquid sidechain. And in addition to those elements, there's also in there the call for a proprietary element. And I was thinking a lot about this, what exactly could that proprietary element be? And now I thought about it, and what it could be is some sort of taint or identifier. There's some sort of tag on it, some meta tag, or even something hashed into the address or whatever, or the transaction ID that is associated with MasterCard, in that it identifies the transaction as being sourced or being received from an affiliate, somebody who is licensed to transact for them. So, if you're able to afford the license fees, and in addition to that, are able to afford the state and national regulations or the compliance stuff that you would have to do, like registration and fitness fees and all this other shit, and application fees for this, and on top of that, you're going to need to hire people in order to handle all of that. So, when you think about that in those terms, what you come to is that if you just substitute Visa or MasterCard as the hub in the whole Lightning Network gig, it's really obvious to see that if these entities have been the ones that have been buying millions of Bitcoin, or not millions, but at least hundreds of thousands over the recent year or so, they're accumulating volumes to be hosting on these Lightning Network channels. They're planning way ahead of you, And I keep thinking about it, and I think that the goal right there is to have this network where you're just circulating abstractions. You're not even circulating Bitcoin anymore, but it's all based on Bitcoin transactions, because you need Bitcoin transactions in order to initiate and terminate the Lightning Network payment channel, right? At some point or another, that 1 megabyte is going to get really fucking tiny. And so I've already stated multiple times on this show, I think it'll become the most expensive real estate on planet Earth. That you're going to be paying millions of dollars per KB just to put a fucking transaction up, because you're going to have to be bidding against Visa, MasterCard, Goldman Sachs, everybody else who's doing transactions on this thing. I think that is so dangerous. And I mean, this last week, it should indicate to you why that is so fucking dangerous. I mean, could you imagine having quadrillions of fucking dollars being circulated around on top of the Bitcoin blockchain via payment channels, right? And then for whatever reason, China says, we're going to only use ultra mega blocks and everybody else can go fuck off. What the all of a sudden you would have to be competing for their block space because your fucking network wouldn't handle it here. You don't have the infrastructure to handle it. So now you got to ask them. And this is so contrary to where Bitcoin was supposed to go. I swear. To me, this last week said loud and clear, way fucking more of us need to be miners. I mean, like thousands, tens of thousands more of us need to be miners that have control over their own hash. So these decisions, this top-down bullshit, we're going to inject a bunch of opcodes and nobody really knows how it's going to affect the functionality. We don't really know what the intention is behind initiating them or anything. And we're going to raise the block size to 128 megabytes and fuck half the goddamn network off. That's the desirable path. So, we're going to rent all kinds of hash and we're going to push that through. Could you imagine that kind of thing happening if you had, 10, 20 miners, and you and all the people on your pool have been talking about this thing upcoming, and you all decide amongst one another, you know what, fuck that shit. I don't want to run that variant of Bitcoin Cash. Fuck that. I don't want to run that variant of Bitcoin or Dogecoin or anything else. So you have the choice over what you dedicate your hashing power to. Now imagine how that would affect the Lightning Network or anything like that. I think it would fuck it all up. I think the idea of trying to take the miners and create out of them a quote-unquote network specifically for the use by everybody else, I think it's completely fucking silly. I mean, when this thing first started, we used to talk about things like central points of failure. But, we don't talk about that too much anymore. And I wonder about that. How there's been such a mimetic drift over time. It's like selling you concepts that are a little bit less than what you were initially sold every time. So initially we were sold Bitcoin, right? And then we were sold altcoins, which actually turned out to be bigger and better in many ways than specifically Bitcoin, because we were able to explore the different kinds of use cases they could be put to. But then later on down the line, we're sold this idea that, originally we were sold the idea that we could, as miners, affect change on the network, right? And there was a shit ton of collaboration when there were tens of 20,000 fucking miners all over the planet. There's all kinds of collaboration going on, all kinds of communication going on. But then ASICs came along, and then we got warehouses full of ASICs, and that fucked everything up a little bit. And so we're kind of in a limbo state, I think. We got this really, really powerful network. We got all this kind of money that's used to dealing in circumstances where they're able to define the parameters of the network, and they're able to, adjust things here and adjust things there to where they're always benefited from everybody's transactions, whether or not they actually contribute anything to the transaction other than facilitating it, of course. But because they had that limited access, they had that limited access to the market. They didn't have to compete for your interest. That's the only thing that's allowed the several abuses that the public has suffered via manipulation of the currencies of this planet. And I mean, they've gone so far as to rig the goddamn London interbank overnight rate for loans from different countries, and basically just persecuted countries, wholesale via their network. I read somewhere one time that the SWIFT network has an approximately 35% failure rate on international transfers. Now, if I were in a manufacturing environment, and I came upon an assembly line where the final product at QA was suffering a 35% failure rate, I would start looking up my production line for the bottleneck and I would terminate it. I would fire everybody in the fucking department and replace them with newbies, because there's obviously something in there that's really fucking things up. And I would be willing to bet there's only like certain jurisdictions that suffer that kind of failure rate, and that's a global average. Okay, out of all the participant countries and whatnot, 35% failure rate. You know, I mean, that's why they have big ass custodial demand, like registration and all that shit. Is that there's got to be some accountability when millions of fucking dollars just get spaced. You know, on the Swift network. You know, somebody's going to get fired or should get fired. You know, there's got to be some sort of accountability, and there's also got to be a way to adjust the means of getting people trained up to be in that position, because obviously there's something wrong with the ideation or methodologies that you've used to date, that, you know, they find it that much easier to just steal from you. But we've replaced all that with Bitcoin and other cryptocurrencies. We replaced that, and as a matter of fact, I don't think there's a single cryptocurrency that's ever suffered a 35% failure rate of its transaction volume in any, I don't know, hour period. You know, if you were to break it down from like month to week to day to hours, even over like an hour period or a 2 hour period, I don't think there's any network out there on a cryptocurrency anyway that suffered a 35% failure rate. I mean, if there was, they took care of that shit like immediately. They like looked at it and said, okay, there's something wrong here, let's fix this. And within a short period of time, it was fucking resolved. Now, why Swift couldn't do that before we came along, I don't know. But in contrast to what services they're able to offer and the failure rate that they still suffer, I think we're still kicking their ass, and 14-year-old kids at that. It shows you what kind of abuses and how fragile the market can become if monopoly is the name of the game. And it's something to consider as we go forward in cryptocurrencies, because there is going to be a time in the not so distant future where the use of cryptocurrencies as a means of digitally transferring monetary value around is going to become a definite like necessity, or at least a significant option in people's lives, that they're going to be looking at how they can transfer money around, and they're going to be evaluating cryptocurrencies right alongside US dollars or euros or whatever currency is produced or transacted by their nation state. And I believe in the longer term, in the next, I would say 10 or 20 years, that we're going to get beyond this bullshit of trying to make cryptocurrencies fit into the model provided to us by Visa and MasterCard and the existing legacy finance structures. Because we're talking about global currency standards. Global currency standards. All of the little inefficiencies that are associated with having national and international intermediaries is gone. They're not even worth considering. But we keep trying to fit ourselves back in there, you know, because everybody wants to rent, seek, and just suck value and whatnot, instead of actually hunting for the value. And more importantly, not just hunting for the value, putting out there to the world, this is what I'm willing to accept for this. Is anybody willing to pay it? You know, I could put a bag of 5-inch Senkos up on a website or something, or like even in a Reddit, and say, hey, I'm willing to accept $10 in Verge right now for this. Here's my receive address. And I just watch it on the blockchain. I like set up an alarm for it. And as soon as I see that somebody has sent me the money, I put the fucking thing in a box and I send it to the address that they've got associated with it. So like they write in a line, or they DM me or email me or something like that. And there, I've made $3 on a bag of Senkos. This is, of course, assuming that Verge doesn't go down in between. But the point being is, I would get the Verge immediately, and they would get the Senkos as quickly as they could get there. And I would have made a premium by allowing them to sell me something or buy something from me with cryptocurrency. This is the world we live in right now. This is the world we've lived in since 2012. And people still want to hold on to the 1950s. But, it takes time. Evolution takes time. Anyway, let's go ahead and throw down into some music, because we haven't even played a first dance. Man, I just jumped right into a massive soliloquy there, and, here we are. I did get some new music, but I do want to go back and play one of my favorites, because, well, I don't know how, but last episode we managed to make it through the entire episode without playing one song by Prong. Now, I don't know how that happened. That's just like a major oversight or something. It should be a capital offense. I'm sure it is somewhere. Anyway, let's go ahead and throw down. And I've been feeling this like all day long. And I think some people are finally starting to sober up to it, that there's forces within cryptocurrency and the cryptosphere that specifically seek to divide communities. Because by dividing us, they can terminate communication, and if we're not talking to one another, we can't warn one another when shit is going bad. And so here it is, Prong, Divide and Conquer, First Dance, here on Coin Metal. And that was Static X with Cannibal. Man, I love that song. That's one of those songs that when you're on the treadmill or something like that, it's like, okay, we can knock it up a few miles an hour. As for the material for the evening, I was kind of at a loss as to where exactly to run. I got about, I don't know, at least 20 tabs open, and they're just all wide-ranging. But we already started talking about this one thing. And so I thought it was really funny that, I checked the old Twitter feed, the trusty Twitter feed, and well, bam, I find this thing. It's on cryptomedia.com, or I'm sorry, .press. My apologies. Cryptonewmedia.press. I actually had to read it. The Daily. U.S. Bank to issue crypto cards. Coinbase updates wallet. This is by Hodl. Last update was November 18th, 2018. So yesterday. and no indication of penis, so sorry. The Daily. In Sunday's edition of The Daily, we cover the upcoming launch of a new Visa debit card that will allow users in the U.S. to spend cryptocurrencies through conversion to fiat. We also mention the updated Coinbase wallet and take a look at an educational course that's going to reward students with digital coins. Oh my fuck. I need to find one about programming in like stat. Crypto.com to launch prepaid Visa cards in the U.S. You know what? I just want to stop right there for just a moment. How many times since 2014 have we heard this same fucking song and dance? Continuing on. New York-based Metropolitan Commercial Bank and Forest Inc., a Jacksonville, Florida headquartered affiliate of digital asset wallet provider Crypto.com, are preparing to issue Visa crypto debit cards in the United States. The announcement comes after Crypto.com, a Hong Kong-based company formerly known as Monaco, recently launched its MCO Visa card program in Singapore. The prepaid cards, which have no annual, monthly, and ATM withdrawal fees, can be ordered from from the wallet and card app of the cryptocurrency payment platform. The application allows users to purchase, sell, store, send, and track cryptocurrencies. Customers can also use it to spend their digital coins in stores accepting Visa through conversions to fiat money without being charged extra fees. Oh gosh, what a big temptation, huh? Reservations for the MCO Visa cards can be made after users pass an onboarding process, which includes ID verification. According to a press release, over 100,000 cards have already been reserved globally. With the wallet app, cardholders will be able to manage the card usage and their crypto and fiat transactions. They can also freeze and unfreeze their cards with a single tap at any moment. Coinbase wallet updated. Cryptocurrency exchange Coinbase has updated its Ethereum-based wallet to improve its looks and add new functionalities. According to an announcement on Twitter, all supported ERC20 tokens will now show up automatically, along with available values in local fiat currency. That means users will no longer need to manually add the tokens to their platform. The California-based digital asset trading platform has also introduced a new crypto collectibles gallery integrated with OpenSea and OpenSea and Rarebits to support hundreds of collectibles. Other changes include improved stability, security, and better gas price estimation. The wallet app has already been updated for iPhone users. The new version for Android phones is expected within the next few days. Course rewards students with coins. See, I'm more interested in this kind of thing, man, because that's cool. Eternity, a company that manages smart contracts, has recently teamed up with peer-to-peer online learning platform Decade to launch an introductory course for cryptocurrencies and blockchain. The free program is designed to educate users, developers, and entrepreneurs on the basics of crypto-related technologies. Furthermore, students who develop practical use cases will be rewarded with Eternity tokens. According to CoinMarketCap, the Eternity coin AE currently sells for around 88 cents. The first edition of the course is a non-technical introduction for beginners, but the partners plan to soon form advanced learning communities for developers. That's interesting. See, I wish that there was like a bigger article associated with this, because that seems like it's worth, I don't know, more attention, you know? What a disappointment. This article was actually like 4 sub-articles into one. But the one that caught my eye is U.S. Bank getting ready to issue crypto cards. That's pretty interesting. Let's see if they give us an actual link for that one. Blah, blah, blah. No, crypto.com. Those fuckers. They lied. It wasn't U.S. Bank. It was, they say here, it's crypto.com to launch prepaid Visa cards in the U.S. That's the real deal right there. What a disappointment. Yeah, like I said, we've heard... I've heard this specifically for Verge at least one time. At least once. I believe it's been twice that, oh yeah, we've got Visa integration. Yeah, whatever. You know? It all comes down to what people choose to use. You can say all kinds of shit about shit. But it depends on how people use it. Do they use it at all? You know, and I think that's the point that a lot of people miss with regard to this whole chain split and Bitcoin Cash and all that. The whole topology that they're talking about is, in my mind at least, deviates away from the idea of using cryptocurrencies as money per se. And I don't know, like I said, the value that you put into it is the most important part about it. You're the market. If you don't approve of it, if you don't like it, you don't have to use it. And it's not like there isn't a bazillion competing options out there, and more of them spawning by the day, not just out here on the periphery in the cryptosphere, but also in legacy markets where they're looking at these tools and they're actually using them. And I can tell that because of the progression in speed that all of my transactions have been taking. They've all gotten faster. That tells me that they're utilizing quote-unquote blockchain technology at one area or another, where they're either doing transactions straight on the Bitcoin blockchain or other blockchains, their own. Maybe their own internal gig. But it's where the rubber hits the road. It's what you as the user, you as the market decide to use. And I think the idea of other people being necessary to facilitate your transactions at any layer, I don't really see that it's necessary. Because, again, these tools were meant to be used. These currencies were meant to be used as money. Their wallets are designed to allow that, for you to use it as money without anybody else involved. So again, the idea of Lightning Network, it sounds great on paper, and I think it's something great for a back end, but not necessarily something that the average everyday person is going to be utilizing on a daily basis. You know, we looked at the progression of mining. Where did mining end up? 70% of it happens in fucking China now. At the time that ASICs came online, like 90% of the mining was done in the US. And then there was like this growing interest abroad. But the point being that nobody bitched about centralization when it was here in the United States, and there were tens, if not 20,000, or not hundreds of thousands of people that were interested in mining. I would say tens of thousands that were mining specifically. And I don't think that altcoins diluted the pool of interest either. I think that the pool of interest is much larger than the market is currently indicating. And I think one of the problems that has existed has been the on-ramps for cryptocurrency mining, you know, such as ASICs, where you had to get a loan from somebody just to be able to afford, or you had to raise some money yourself through trading or some other way to get the money to invest in miners. You know, and I think that the price point for mining has been a bit high. And I'm expecting it to come down because, you know, we talk a lot about it on this show how there have been a growing number of competitors for the hardware space. You know, that Bitmain is being challenged more and more every day. Antminer is being challenged every day by more and more vendors and more units. And I think that we've come to like a threshold of some type with regard to mining and and I would say like this, at least the spec thresholds, where we're needing to get some uniformity down. You know, I mean, at least get it down to like 10, like maybe 12 nanometers to 7 nanometers is our range of operation. I mean, there's still 26 nanometer chipsets being manufactured right now. So, you know, I mean, that to me is a demonstration of how fast Moore's Law actually would work if so much of the development wasn't in so few hands. You know, if we weren't depending on Samsung to craft all the new hardware or Nvidia to make all the new video cards. You know, that forsaking our responsibilities there and taking the chance to go into hardware development and whatnot. I think that's one of the things that ended in like 1997, 1998. There was way more vendors for hardware than there is now. I don't know. I think we probably come back up on that, but the difference is now that there's fewer manufacturers of the chipsets themselves, and then they just package them in all different ways. And that's where you get the differentiation between one company and another, is the packaging, not necessarily the capability of the processor that's inside of it. And so I think that's one of those critical thresholds that we're going to hit, that, you know, we've already passed affordability with regard to miners, right? So maybe we step back just a step or two and go to like 10 nanometer, right? Instead of 7. Maybe not push the bleeding edge, but try to make the most economical, most efficient miner, most powerful miner that you can for a lower price point. You know, get those mining specific cards down there to $100, $200 a card, and that's going to boost some more interest in sucking up the supply. And as a matter of fact, I've got a article, I think. I had an article. Let me check something really quick here. I had an article about NVIDIA and how they've been kind of sucking wind as of late, because of like lack of their third quarter sales on video cards for mining. And I don't see it here, but anyway, I can talk about it because I actually have read enough in the material about it. The big issue for NVIDIA is that they're in a love-hate relationship with cryptocurrencies. Okay, they love us because we want the fastest, most efficient fucking cards we can buy, and those are their higher-end cards. They hate us because those same cards are made specifically so gamers can get the most bang for their buck out of games, and the gamers can't buy them because they can't afford to pay as much for a video card as they can for an entire desktop system. I mean, I can make a kick-ass desktop for $500, and I can put a decent video card in it for that much too. So, you know, when you're talking about units that are, you know, 4-8 times as much as it would take to put a desktop on your desk with a video card, you know, where we're talking about $2,000 to $4,000 per video card. I'm sorry, man. You need to bring that down. You know, and like I said, maybe it does take a step down in size spec, but I would think that it'd be even more efficient to just go straight to 7 nanometer. Just fucking go uniform with it. As many places as you can in your architecture, shrink it down. Get those specs smaller. You know, because the more you can make, of course, the cheaper per unit they can be. And I see from the market, at least peripherally looking from the outside, that people don't really discriminate against, you know, one S9 and another. You know, it's usually the price point, and that's usually dictated by their location on the planet, the person purchasing it. You know, if they're in China, it's probably a lot cheaper than it is in the United States. But the point being that they don't really care about what the packaging is. It's the performance, right? So again, if NVIDIA, if they're sucking wind with their mining, with miners just not being as profitable this last quarter, that's a lot of things going on there. Number one, I think they just don't pay attention to their price point enough. You know, when they were looking at the last 3 quarters, when they were just banging on all 8s and making all kinds of fucking money off of miners, they should have been saying to themselves, all right, this might not last forever, so rather than wimping out of the mining market, and rather than shunning the mining market like we've been doing for the last 4 fucking years, rather than talking shit about it, what we should be doing is renting some more production capacity, if not building some more production capacity, so that we can get the cost of our individual chips down. I mean, really, folks. To me, that was a big miscall for them. And in the longer term, people are just going to shift to other hardware. They're going to resort to using recycled hardware if they have to, because a lot of the shit that they got laying around them is very, very powerful. You know, those iPhones, It's a lot of juice in one of those. I read something, I think it was a year, maybe even 2 years ago, about how somebody had taken a whole bunch of old, older, not really old, but older Samsung phones, and they made a mining array with them, and they mined cryptocurrency with it. Now that doesn't sound very practical, but when you consider the cost per cell phone these days and the vast amount of power that they individually have, if you can network a shit ton of them together, you can make yourself a half decent mining rig. And I think that the value metrics on mining are going to be shifting around quite a bit. You know, that, again, I have predicted this multiple times, that the idea of warehouse miners, it has so many dangers. You know, offloading so much of the responsibility of the network onto warehouses, it to me, it creates central points of failure. You know, where at some point or another, you're depending on them to do their shit, and so they get kind of lackadaisical about how often they're upgrading their hardware. And then some other segment of the computing realm gets ahead of them and overpowers the fucking network by some asshole performer. You know, technology doesn't make us any less of an asshole. You know, there are plenty of them out there. You know them. You know who you are. I look in the mirror and I see one occasionally. I can't claim any higher ground there. But I think that the value metrics, like I said, of mining is going to vastly alter over the next 2 years. That between improvements in hardware and just the lack of practicality, you know, it creates a lot of noise. It pisses people off because it creates a lot of noise. It creates a lot of demand for electricity, pisses people off because of the demand of electricity. Now, these are all blowback from pushing mining out of the hands of the average person. If the average person could afford to mine, they wouldn't give a fuck. They would not give a fuck. If they could actually affordably participate, they would not give a fuck. They would participate. You know, especially if they were making money at it. And I do believe that is going to be the name of the game in the not so distant future. I know that I'm kind of a broken record when it comes to that, but it's a core belief of mine that, you know, when I saw this operating at its most optimum, I would say between 2012 and 2015, around in there, it seemed to me that was the best way for it to operate. You know, that there was a diversity of options and there was a great deal more participation than there is right now. And I think that's going to be the root of the greater expansion of cryptocurrencies, is going to be greater participation. I've been predicting it for a while, but I think Alt Bloom 2.0 is ahead of us. That we are going to see another, you know, explosion of creativity centered around creating cryptocurrencies that the average person could participate in from the ground floor up and compete with Visa on even footing. That is not going to end. I foresee it, because none of these people can afford to stay at zero fees. You know, we were talking about that U.S. company that's going to be doing zero fees for transfers and all that shit. Eventually, they have to increase the rate, because that's the point of being a gatekeeper, is so you can charge people to walk through the gate. You don't just manage the gate just for the fuck of it. No. So rather than the gatekeepers being somebody else, Satoshi called us to be gatekeepers of our own. And how many of us take him up on that? That's going to determine the success or failure of any of these projects. You know, we saw it just this last week, the dangers of centralization in mining, where the people mining or managing the mining pool can say, you know what? We actually own these miners, and we're just renting you the hash power, and so we're going to mine the version of Bitcoin that we want to, with this hardware. And we know we rented you the hashing power beforehand, but we'll pay you back later. We'll compensate you later. They shouldn't be able to tell you that. They shouldn't be able to say that to you. When they say that to you, you look over at your miners and you're like, yeah, fuck you. This is my hash power. This isn't your hash power. This is my hash power. And I'll determine what the fuck it goes to. And it is with that. I want to go ahead and drop back down into some music. I gotta find some better meat. That one article really pissed me off. And so with that in mind, let's go with a little Slipknot. Some early Slipknot. And that was Corrosion of Conformity with Break the Circle. Yeah. And so, I've been digging around a little bit, following up on the demand for better media, man. Jesus Christ. And one of the things that I used to do a lot on this show is talk about just various projects that are in the crypto sphere, in addition to legislative actions and all that other shit. And so it's like, I've got a couple things here. I've been talking a lot about, getting people, people getting into doing the mining thing, man. And so I was looking around and I found this thing here about Ubiq. And I'm not familiar with it. And I'm tempted to read it because it's it applies to people that are using a Raspberry Pi computer. So, it tells you that some people are thinking along the lines of what I'm talking about here with smaller scale hardware doing the same job as these huge mining farms and whatnot. And like I said, I think there's going to be a point where between the energy demands that they place on localities and whatnot and various other pressures, I think the tendency towards bigger and bigger mining farms is actually going to decline. And I know that I sound kind of like a parrot of myself there with that, but I think there are a lot of pressures that can be applied to that, or that are produced by it, by that level, that scale of mining, that is just pretty, it's kind of intolerable for the market, and there seems to be a lot of pushback against it, where we're seeing less and less activity on the Bitcoin network because, again, people's interest isn't really included in it. There were far more people interested in it when there was tens and thousands of fucking miners out there, and I think there's still the urge to participate in it at that level. And so, when I'm reading up about about how there have been several kind of gimmicks done to force through big blocks on the Bitcoin Cash network and how that's been affecting the rest of the network, I just got to look at that and wonder, what these people's longer term goals are, because, a lot of us have been kicked out due to ASICs, and so now what are we going to do with regard to being kicked out of networks that we just can't handle the block size? I don't think that's going to kill the interest in cryptocurrencies. As a matter of fact, I think it'll spur the interest in more CPU mining and more GPU mining, and that we're going to be looking to make the shit efficient enough to where it'll run on a lower end video card and it'll actually get a decent fucking yield. And the shit'll be tiny at the beginning. I think that was one of the big mistakes of the ICO bloom, was that they were all trying to get ahead of the curve with regard to the presentation of their materials. Instead of going the route that Bitcoin and many other projects that are still successful and are still continuing to be traded and mined, they thought that they could just get the cheese first and then run the maze. But the fact of the matter is that you get the cheese and then you fatten up on it and then you can't run the maze. And that's been the case. And I mean, with Ethereum dropping through the floor, a lot of the ICOs that were dependent on it are probably looking for an exit at this point, trying to reserve some of the value that people had invested in them. And I think that's the wrong cue. You know, you decided a long time ago, or not so long ago, to peg your project to Ethereum. And you understood the risks when you did that. Or if you didn't, then too fucking bad. I'm sorry, man. You really should not be managing millions of other people's dollars if you don't know that. If you're not aware of that inherent risk. And so it's like, it's one thing to, you know, commit to everybody, oh yeah, we're going to trade, we're going to buy a bunch of Ethereum, and that's what we're going to use to issue our tokens against, and that's going to be value in, you know, there's a big old question mark in there. It's like the underpants gnomes market model of cryptocurrency. You know, when we first started this shit, you started with a white paper and some code and an IRC chat room and a Twitter account and a Facebook account and a few other social media accounts, and you just coordinated with people. You said, hey man, we're doing this thing over here, you might want to try it out. Here's some fucking code, run it on your machine. This is the port to line it up to. Let's go. Come on, get on it. And people did it. You know, they found projects that they believed in and they mined them. And then they transacted the coin and they made a whole bunch of money, you know. But that's just the gambling aspect of it. And I think a lot of people during that time, there was such a fervor for new altcoins that there wasn't too much interest really in what the coin was supposed to do to some extent, you know. And we saw a lot of that with ICOs too. And anyway, I got this article here on bitcoinmagazine.com, and I just kind of wanted to segue into this. It's by Jimmy Aki, staff writer, so yes, penis. November 16th, 2018, 3:55 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. Thank you very much, Jimmy, for being so specific about where this is coming from. ICO issuers settle registration charges with SEC. Holy shit, it can be done. The U.S. Securities and Exchange Commission, SEC, has agreed to settle charges with two startups that sold tokens through initial coin offerings, ICOs, in 2017. The companies were charged by the SEC for running their ICOs after the regulator clearly defined such offerings as unlicensed securities in its DAO report of investigation. The startups indicted by the SEC are Brooklyn-based AirFox, which sold $15 million worth of tokens, and Paragon Coin, which raised $12 million selling tokens. Quote, "We have made it clear that companies that issue securities through ICOs are required to comply with existing statutes and rules governing the registration of securities," Stephanie Avakian, co-director of the SEC's Enforcement Division, explained in a release. Quote, "These cases tell those who are considering taking similar actions that we continue to be on the lookout for violations of the federal securities laws with respect to digital assets." Yeah, you know what, dude? Fuck you, Stephanie. You're the one that's tagging it with this bullshit digital asset. No. These are cryptocurrencies, girl. Continuing on. The two cases happen to be a first for the commission, where civil penalties were imposed for, quote, ICO securities offering registration violations, and they followed the commission's first non-fraud case against Munchie Inc. in 2017, when it stopped the startup's token offerings and instructed the company to return the proceeds to investors. Whatever. The companies involved have, however, agreed to settle the case without admitting to or denying the findings from the regulator. Each company will pay a $250,000 fine to the SEC and compensate investors who purchase the tokens. Both startups are also required to register their tokens as securities and to file periodic reports to the SEC. Yeah, go fuck yourself, SEC. Stephen Pekin, co-director of the SEC's Enforcement Division, believes the new model affords investors the ability to be compensated for purchasing unregistered securities. Like, that's really helping anybody, seriously. Quote, by providing investors who purchase securities in these ICOs with the opportunity to be reimbursed and having the issuers register their tokens with the SEC, these orders provide a model for companies that have issued tokens in ICOs and seek to comply with the federal securities laws. This is the SEC's second settlement in less than 30 days. Just last week, it reached an agreement to settle charges leveled against the founder of decentralized exchange EtherDelta, Zachary Coburn, who had been accused of running a, quote, unregistered national securities exchange, agreed to pay more than $300,000 in penalties. As detailed in this end-of-the-year report, 2018 has been a busy year of enforcement for the regulatory agency as it continues to crack down on unregistered cryptocurrency companies. No. They're cracking down on ICOs, which are different than cryptocurrencies, because cryptocurrencies potentially have their own blockchain and are not dependent upon another cryptocurrency. These people, man, it's like they dilute the whole vernacular, and cross-use it and whatnot. Basically, this was a shakedown by the SEC. They said, hey, we noticed you got a lot of money over there. We got guns, and we'll come over there and steal it from you if you don't give it to us as part of a court settlement. That's what went on. Hey, man. More power to them. If they can get away with it, whatever. If people buy into it, whatever. The freedom of the internet is that you don't necessarily have to be in any specific place at any specific time to do any specific thing. You can be elsewhere. And if you're receiving this kind of abuse, I would say, in the United States markets, fuck, evacuate, man. Don't even deal with it. Just bail. Say, I'm going to go to Singapore or somewhere else where they really don't give a fuck what I'm doing online. And I imagine there are such places that still exist on this planet. And if I can communicate with somebody, I can transact with them. That's what cryptocurrencies truly afford. And without a third-party provider like a fucking Lightning Network provider. I think that's something that shouldn't be lost in this time. That really, when you're talking about what currency you should be transacting your monetary value in, you need to be evaluating them according to all the associated costs. Not just the upfront costs, not just all the associated costs. Whether it's you have to go through two different exchanges in order to get from one currency all the way to US dollars or euros, and how to refine that process down to as few participants as possible. And once you're back into crypto, you could take it anywhere that wallet will work. And as far as I've experienced so far with cryptocurrency wallets, if there is a live network, the wallet fucking works. If there are miners out there mining it, the wallet works. And that's really all that's really required, is your interest. And I think I've said this on the show before, that was the one thing that disappointed me a lot with a lot of Andreas's talks. He talked about you running your own node, and your own Lightning node, and all that other business, but he never talked about or spent very, very little time encouraging anybody to mine. And I think that was a kind of a disservice, because he just focused on the the service end of it and not actually how we get it. I mean, he discussed the whole, consensus and whatnot, but he didn't put it in a context of you doing it. How you do it, where you go to get the hardware, where you go to get the software, where you go to pool with. What services provide the better services for you? Which ones provide you with a better compensation model? Those are, I think, are the more important discussions to be had about this space. Is how is it that you can participate in full capacity that this affords, rather than some truncated, cut-off version that you just placidly accept being served to you by a third-party trusted provider. We created all of this shit so we can get away from trusted third parties, not so we could create a new place for trusted third parties to sit in our lives. But I think that's one of those lessons that we are going to learn over the longer term. I think this last week was a perfect indicator of it. How much control did you have over what was going on? Probably not all that much. Probably about as much as I did. And I don't have any miners that are mining Bitcoin Cash, so there you go. If I were involved at that level, though, I think I would have expressed my interest in it. It certainly wouldn't have been to change anything about Bitcoin Cash. As far as I saw it, and still do, Bitcoin Cash was fine at 8 megabytes. There's hardly a time when they're filling blocks to the extent that they would be overflowing 8 megabyte blocks. It just doesn't really happen on their network yet. Now, I was willing to concede that 32 megabytes was probably a better fit, because that did allow for the conceivable expansion of use within the next 2 to 4 years. And then we would probably be back at it again, saying, they're filling 4 to 8 megabytes typically, and so, maybe we can move it up to 64. And of course, Moore's Law, in 2 to 4 years, we would have the internet capacity for it pretty much all over the planet, and we would have ready access to miners that could mine it by then. And I think that's the point that a lot of people lose sight of in cryptocurrencies, is that it's expanding in a multitude of directions. And not all of them are confining to you. There are some that limit your access and limit your abilities and limit your quote-unquote sovereignty. But in my mind, if you can have it all, why should you settle for less? That's pretty much my feeling on it. And this is a good little report to throw in here. This is concerning the ICOs from the SEC. This is one of their press releases. Company halts ICO after SEC raises registration concerns. And, oh no, never mind. We're not going to go back that far. This is December 11th, 2017. Sounds like last year. Not going to do it. Anyway, ICOs, again, it was a bad model, I think, because it did allow too much of the function of what it does, and to match too many of the regulatory formats that we already have. And I think that was one of the points that with regard to cryptocurrencies, where you want to have your own blockchain. You want to be having your own dedicated miners and your own dedicated network and software and all that business. Is that by being dependent on another, you do create a pairing that does kind of mimic a security as it's conventionally recognized. Yeah. So anyway, as far as my other media here, I got some other stuff here. And this one is I don't know how far we're going to get into this. And I'd like to preface this one. recently there was this gentleman, Ryan Charles, and this is not to like fuck with anybody or whatever, but I just want to point it out because it feels kind of weird to me. Is that this guy and I followed one another on Twitter for quite a while, right? And I made a comment to him because he put out this video about how he was committed to SV, right? And he also disclosed in that video that he'd received a significant sum of money, but we're not going to go into that either. If you want to find out about that, look up the video. Anyway, so I commented to him that, you know, he really ought to just like open it up to where cryptocurrency users could use it rather than just one variant of Bitcoin Cash. And I was then blocked. Now, mind you, we'd been following one another for months, maybe even years. It's been a long time. And I think I've even talked to him once or twice on his show. Or while he was doing a video or something. But anyway, he's basically doing his alliances according to Craig Wright's version of things. Is like, if you don't like what somebody has to say, or if it isn't dogmatically about SV and his vision of things, then you got to block them. So, whatever. It's neither here nor there. But the what I found weird about it, again, after blocking me like that, and it's like, dude, I wasn't cussing him out. I wasn't saying anything bad to him, and he fucking blocks me. It's like, okay, you know, what the fuck? And so anyway, I wanted to preface that because there's been a number of companies now that have been showing a distinct alliance like that's going to save them anything in the longer term. And yeah, so I got this article here on moneybutton.com, and apparently they are one of the groups. And I've never understood what Money Button was about. I've never even bothered to get into it, you know, like a white paper or anything like that. But we're going to read this article here. It's Our Stance Against Censorship and a Public Apology to the Bitcoin Cash Community by Money Button, authored November 20th, 2018. So apparently they're time travelers too. Here we go. We apologize to Robert Miller, free trader Kane_Niak, and Jesquit for banning you from yours.org and for deleting your content. We have unbanned all 4 of you and have restored your content. We are fully committed to providing a censorship-free platform for payments. By design, it is not possible for Money Button to censor payments. Because Money Button leverages on-chain transactions where users hold the keys, payments cannot be blocked, reversed, frozen, or inflated away. We have never, and by design, cannot censor payments. However, content on yours.org is centralized. Although we have a moral commitment to remain censorship-free, it is technically possible to ban users and delete content. Since last Thursday, an unprecedented hash battle has afflicted the Bitcoin Cash community and driven people into opposing camps. No, it really hasn't. They've, like, all of the talking heads have been the people that have split. The majority of people that are just like cryptocurrency enthusiasts, they don't really give a fuck about any of this shit. Continuing on. Since last Thursday, an unprecedented hash battle has affected blah blah blah, driven people into opposing camps. In the midst of these extreme events, a member of our staff had an emotional reaction and banned users he disagreed with on yours.org and deleted their content. In addition, the staff member made many comments on social media in direct opposition to the values of our company. These actions were unacceptable. We are changing course and doing everything in our power to undo the damage caused by these actions. We hope to convince the community that this was an exception caused by extreme circumstances that will never be repeated. We hope that over time we can rebuild trust with the Bitcoin Cash community and regain those valued users as active contributors. A personal message from the CEO. I have felt tremendous stress leading up to and during the hash battle. On Saturday, I received a huge volume of negative messages from users on Reddit and Twitter. Although I have developed a strong tolerance for online negativity, these messages were more than I could handle, and I lost control. I banned Robert Miller, Jesquit, Kane_Nyack, and Free Trader from yours.org based on these messages and deleted their content. After talking this over with the other members of Yours Inc., who have cooler heads than I have, it is clear that this was a mistake and needed to be undone. I formally apologize to Robert Miller, Free Trader, Kane_Nyack, and Jesquit for banning you on yours.org and deleting your content. I have unbanned you and restored your content. In addition, I would like to apologize to Jihan Wu, Armory Secha, and Jake Smith for treating you disrespectfully during the hash battle. I have tremendous respect to all three of you and hope that the hash battle does not permanently damage our relationships. There are probably others I have affected as well during the fast-paced events of the past several days. You two have my deepest apologies. Please let me know if I have wronged you, and I will do what I can to undo the damage. See you all on the other side. Ryan X. Charles. Final note, although yours.org has centralized content storage, the internet as a whole does not. Our main contribution to this industry is MoneyButton, a fully decentralized, censorship-free payment option for websites and apps. MoneyButton can be used to... No, I'm not going to do it. Now. So anyway, this to me is like damage control. Yeah. And I don't see that it's going to really... buy any trust back. I mean, really, dude. You build relationships with people, then you turn on them, then you get what you want, and now you want to play nice. I don't think until the greater community gets what it wants, which is a cryptocurrency that it can use, that it doesn't have to worry about some butthole coming along and saying, I'm Satoshi Nakamoto, you should listen to me. And people follow along like a bunch of fucking sheep. I mean, really, dude. You got into this for your self-interest, not for the interest of others. And so when you start cutting off your own interests for the benefit of other people's interests, you cut yourself off, man. You've burnt that bridge. Best of luck to you getting it back. But whatever, dude. Have fun. If you're trying to build and retain a community, you don't go all political on them. You don't just delete their fucking content. That tells us that at your whim, you could just delete our shit. You could have a wild hair up your ass and, just something you read. You could even misread it and just, oh, fuck you, and delete all your shit. Why am I going to post my content on your medium if you're going to exercise that kind of control over it? I mean, shit, I might as well just start up my own blog site, and put my content up there rather than depending on you. Put a fucking QR code up and say, hey, if you want to contribute some money for all the media that I put up, here, scan this thing, enter how much you want to enter, and then click send. and I can get around all this yours and all that other bullshit. And really, you got to keep that in mind, that is how easy this shit is. You could have a wallet on your phone, right? Or your tablet, or your desktop, or your whatever. You could have a wallet on that, right? You could be receiving payments to it from your blog site. You post your videos there, you post your written content or whatever, and tag it all over social media. Say, hey, go to this, and people go to it, and they scan the fucking QR code and they enter in how much they want, how much value they thought your media brought to their lives, and click send, and you fucking get it. You don't need Visa to do it. You don't need Lightning to do it. You could do it with you could do it with Verge. You could do it with Monero. You could do it with Ethereum to some extent. You can do it with Bitcoin Cash to some extent. You could still do it with Bitcoin. And really, do you care about how long it takes to get a confirmation on a payment that people just give to you, right? I mean, if you think about it, somebody putting a hat out and then playing in front of it with a guitar on a corner and waiting for people to throw money into it, even if he does get the money into it, there's going to be a duration of time between when he receives it and when he can actually spend it. Well, for you, that duration could be from when you received it to that address to when you get somewhere where you can spend it. And that's what this technology makes possible without a third party. Keep it in mind. That's what makes this different than any other payment medium that's out there, is that we don't need trusted third parties in order to move monetary value from one person to another anywhere on Earth. I still read articles and see shit every once in a while about people using Ripple for international remittances. Give me a fucking break. If you're a cryptocurrency user, you don't need anybody else to do that shit for you. You could have a Skype conversation, you could have a phone conversation with somebody and send them money. I could read off a public address to you right here and they could send me money. That's how this technology works. Not, you fucking start up a Lightning node and you start up a fucking transaction that you fill the payment channel with, and then you make connections with other people and you exchange it off chain, and then you don't need to do all that shit. You don't need to do any of that shit. Anyway, let's go ahead and throw down into some music, because kind of rounding it out, coming down to the end here. And it is with that I'd like to go ahead and throw into some Contortionist. And I've been playing this one song though too much, and I think I need to play something else instead. But at the same time, I still want to play Contortionist. So here it is, Hollow Movement, here on Coin Metal. And that was Prong with Broken Peace. And it is with that I'd like to close out this episode. We will be back again on Wednesday at 8 p.m. Pacific Standard Time. Until then, you can find me on Twitter and on Facebook, and also in Telegram and Discord in the Verge Currency chat room. And so, yeah, man, all kinds of goofiness with regard to Bitcoin Cash. I expect they'll sort it out in soon enough time. I think the minds behind Bitcoin Cash were originally quite pragmatic, and I think the mild diversion of this personality politics, I think it's just a little distraction that we've been able to afford ourselves during this time. But the depreciation in the immediate cash value of Bitcoin Cash and Bitcoin Cash SV and Bitcoin Cash Unlimited, and however other many variants of Bitcoin Cash there are out there, but there are more than two, don't kid yourself. Whichever one does end up being the primary and only chain of Bitcoin Cash, I do believe it will take a relatively short period of time for everybody to sort out the politics, figure out who is really just full of shit, and who is taking credit for their hashes and all that other bullshit. I think it'll take a little bit of time, and after it does sort out, some people are going to be left assed out. Some people that sold their cred for a little bit of coin or a little bit of dollars or whatever, immediate profit, I think we'll find that their long-term profits suffer. But decisions have have their consequences. Freedom is not free. There are consequences to our decisions. And something to remember, even in the crypto sphere. It's not just the SEC that'll hold you accountable. And it is with that, again, that I'd like to close this out. Is for our last dance. I haven't actually picked out anything, but I came across it really recently, and it just dawned on me that it fits within the time period that we have left. And so here it is, Hardwired to Self-Destruct by Metallica. Last dance here on Coin Metal. Thank you very much for listening, and you all have an excellent evening. Oh, and I almost forgot. Trade safe. Do your homework. And watch out for your own bunghole, because goddamn, there ain't nobody else out there that's going to do it for you. Thank you again for listening, and good night.